friends, welcome back to Specular Board Games. Today we're going to be doing a review of Red Rising. We were fortunate enough to receive a review copy from Stonemaier Games, and we've now had a couple of opportunities to play it at different player counts, and we feel like we can give a pretty good review. But first, I'm gonna let Ryan tell you about some stuff. You can cut that out if you want.
Some stuff, yes. Well, first off, if you like what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe. We're also on Instagram if you want to go check out over there. We do some posts and give small reviews on there too of games we're kind of been playing lately, as well as an Etsy page that we have now that we're doing board game upgrades, board game organizers. Kirby's making board game masks.
They're super comfy.
Yes, there's even a board game, not a board game, a Yeti mask is what I was going for. Yes.
They're really cute. It's a Yeti and Bigfoot, and they're roasting marshmallows over a campfire.
So yes, you can find all that over on our Etsy page. And we have a Patreon to help us kind of grow the organizers and upgrades business that we're kind of developing here. And it would be...
We'd be honored to have your support, is what we're saying. If you join that Patreon, there's going to be all kinds of opportunities to give your input into the organizers, what games you want to see, if you want upgrades, exclusive content. So please check it out if you're interested in that kind of thing. The first organizer for Merv is out, and one for Praga.
Yes, is in the work.
Praga is coming soon.
Yes, it's in progress right now. As I start Praga is in the progress. No, enough. So yes, so enough of that. Let's get into our review. So stay tuned.
Before we get into the review, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, who's going to give you a quick overview of how to play Red Rising so that you know what we're talking about. Also, we have a new friend that has joined Specular Board Games. Her name is Potato, the board game cat. She may or may not be making an appearance, as she is a cat, and she does what she pleases.
And it has just jumped on the table and is going to join us.
She wants to grace you with her presence. Hello, Potato.
Welcome, Potato. Our friendly board game cat.
Potato, the friendly board game cat. Beep.
Thank you for joining us, Potato.
Okay, anyways, back to Ryan.
Yes, so Red Rising, a game designed by Jamie Stegmaier and Alexander Schmidt, based on a book by Pierce Brown, Red Rising. We have not read the book, but from playing this, seeing the art, seeing the names, kind of learning a little bit as you play, we want to. We're interested. Yeah. Yes. So the overview of the game, so you can kind of get a gist of what we're talking about in this review. It's pretty simple. You have a hand of cards in which you're trying to make the best hand of cards by the end of the game. And so as you're playing, on your turn, there is going to basically be only two things that you're going to do. Something called leading, something called scouting. To lead is basically taking a card from your hand, playing it at one of the 4 locations on the board. Once you do, there's going to be an action associated at the bottom of the card, and you're just going to play out that action, whether you can, whether you can't. You just do what the card says. Then, once you've done that, you will take a card from one of the other 3 locations, put it to your hand, and then you get the bonus of whatever location it is that you picked it up from. And that's either moving up on the fleet track, putting your influence in the Institute, gaining helium, or the Sovereign token. You could also just draw straight from the top of the deck and then roll the dice right here and take the bonus that the dice shows. Or scouting, like I said, is just simply taking a card from the top of the deck and placing in one of the 4 locations and getting their bonus. That action is more so for when you are pretty much completed with your hand, you think you got the best hand you can, maybe trying to push the game to end, just kind of waiting to see what other cards may come out. It's not used as much in the beginning. Leading is going to be the main part of the game.
Yeah, the rule book even mentions scouting is primarily used to end the game. right? So you have, especially you see this in multiplayer, you have a player who's happy with their hand, maybe they've done it a little bit sooner than everybody else, they're going to push to end the game as soon as possible. And the way that you end the game, either 3 different players have reached 7 on the Fleet Track, the Institute, or in Helium, or 1 player has hit 7 in 2 of those areas. And so that's how you can push the game to completion.
And everyone gets the same amount of turns, and the game ends.
Unless you have one of these nifty little powers that lets you take the last turn, and therefore have kind of an unbalanced end round.
Yes. And once the game ends, you're going to score up all the points from the fleet, majority in the Institute, the amount of helium you have, if you have the sovereign token at the end. And then each card has a base value, as well as bonus points at the bottom of the cards if you can fulfill the goals that the card says. Yeah. And whoever has the most points wins. Pretty simple, really easy to get into and start playing. I think since there are so many cards that you'll see, this is only a very small amount of them, but there's so many cards and so many different combinations you can create that really playing it a few times to really start getting the sense of how all these powers come together. Then you start to kind of create those combos and seeing what's going on. Yeah,
so we've played it now a few times. We've played it at 2 players and we played it at 4 players. Yeah. At 2 players, it's a very, very different game. And I will say there's definitely a possibility that our first game, we both just were dealt cards that created a hand that you could pretty much be okay with right from the get-go. The cards worked, what you saw on the board, and very, very quickly, we found ourselves just racing to end the game.
Yes.
That being said, our second playthrough, we did get a little bit further. We started getting to see some of the fun actions you can take with cards, as far as banishing them, and really started to see a little bit more card movement and see more of the deck. And so it could change based on what you're dealt. That being said, at 4 players, you see so much more movement. We had an array of cards that was never the same round to round, which I thought was really cool because in the 2-player, we basically had the same set of cards out, and that was all we really had.
Yeah.
So certainly we had more variability at the 4 players. We had folks that were taking actions to completely banish whole locations worth of cards. We're talking like 10 cards at a time, and all of a sudden your well thought out strategy could just be gone. So that kept us on our toes.
And so what I think sets this game apart from other similar games where you're trying to collect the best hand and get points from that. This one has very difficult choices to make of when you want to play these cards down, what location you want to play them at, and potentially can you play the card down and get it back by the time it gets to you. And now when we played it at 2 players, that aspect of the game didn't really seem to shine too much.
The risk just wasn't there.
Yeah, it wasn't, because the cards weren't moving around at each location enough. You pretty safely could put the card down, do its action, get another card back, and then get it back the next round because it wasn't likely to be picked up or covered or moved or banished or whatnot throughout this thing. And so there was no real difficult choices I felt I was making. It was more so just being able to quickly create that best hand, which was very easy for the cards. Since there wasn't a lot of cards coming out and whatnot, it was pretty easy to just get my hand done right away, and just because this is pretty much what's out there, and there isn't going to be a whole lot of change.
Yep. Well, in the hands, the cards really, really work together, and there's lots of different colors of like types of cards, right? So you have arbitrators, assistants, elites, companions, right? And they're all broken down by colors, and it's entirely possible, especially in the 2-player, that you play and you don't see whole colors worth of cards. But if you happen to have a hand that's focused on the limited amount of colors that you have, or they play off the colors that you're already given very well, it's very easy to kind of end that game quite quickly. But I know even in 4-player, you're not going to make it through this whole deck. No. There's just no way.
No.
We didn't scrape the surface. We really didn't. And we barely saw, I think there was one color we did not encounter the whole game. And it was a nice long game. Mm-hmm. So it does make it very interesting. So if you have an early strategy, you might be looking midway and having to completely change that strategy just because you're not going to see what you're hoping to find.
Yeah. And because we got some cats in the background here. Fun. So what I was saying is it's you not being able to see some colors could be real difficult. Yeah, devastating because some of the cards are saying like you get to fulfill the bottom goal if it's paired with another color or another person. And if they just don't come up, the game ends pretty quickly at 2 players there, and it's just like, oh shoot, like, do I have time to get rid of this and find something new to do?
Yep. Our second playthrough, I was 100% relying on a named character to come up. I already had a character that I could create. I could just give him a name.
Yeah.
But I was waiting on this one named character, and he didn't come up, never came up. And that was the risk. I took a risk in keeping the card. It just didn't pay off. I got the base value, but no extra points. Ended up searching the deck at the end of the game and found it like in the last few and was like, yep, never would have found it.
And
that being said, I think it's possible. We haven't gone through all the cards. Maybe there's a card that lets you search the deck. Who knows?
Maybe.
We don't know.
Not fully sure. No, but playing it at 4 players, it felt not only not just stressful, but just the choices were actually had to be thought about a lot more because there was a lot of cards I wanted to play for their action because they were really good, but I wanted that card for my hand, and knowing that it was likely not going to be there by the time it got to me was very, very difficult choices and made it actually a lot of fun.
Which is funny, and the girl who won played it the opposite. Yeah. She was just winging it. She was just having fun, didn't really know what was going on, playing cards because they looked interesting. And honestly, she was making the most moves and got the most cards back in her hand. It was remarkable she was able to do that. And of course, I started my hand in our 4-player game. I was playing with my daughter, Izzy, and she's sitting there and we're looking at the cards together. And she looked at me and she was like, your cards are terrible. I was like, yeah, I know. And then I ended up using most of them in my endgame hand just because as things changed and as I got a couple complimentary cards, it was like, oh, perfect, we're done.
And another kind of differentiating portion of the game from 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 with a higher player count is these 3 kind of, well, we'll call them tracks, even though you're just kind of collecting helium or putting resources out. The tracks actually seem to be more important, right? You're not sort of just racing and moving and placing influence out just to end the game in the 4-player, 5-player counts. They actually start to really matter a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
In 2 players, we barely were fighting for majority in the Institute.
No, he had the Institute and I had the Fleet track. And then at the end, it was just a race for helium.
Yeah.
So, I maxed out on the Fleet. He maxed out in the Institute. I just didn't bother. And then it was just helium. You can get points there, but...
Yeah, but at the 4-player that we were doing, we were actually like fighting for some of that majority, trying to keep it, because knowing it's quite a bit of points. And, and fighting for some of that Fleet track and just watching of like having to kind of keep up with it and... made some of those choices of which cards to play, where to play them, just even more challenging and a lot more rewarding and fun when you could pull it off.
Absolutely.
And at 4 players, then we were actually like trading off helium, right? So like postponing the game end basically because someone had enough helium and was just going for one of the other 2 tracks, but then someone would take it away and. I think that push and pull with it was definitely way more interesting. We never really got that at 2 players.
No, we didn't. And again, it could have been just because of the way our hands were. It's possible, right? if we had been given hands that just were able to prolong and we started seeing more of it, maybe we would have had more of the push and pull that we really enjoyed at 4 players.
I don't think we would have, though. I don't think that, I don't know that taking a couple healing from someone was going to be...
would have mattered as much.
Much when you're really trying to be like, I may need this game to go on a little longer. I need to really stop this person who's 2 away on the flea track from ending the game, and let's pull this back a little bit longer. And I don't know, 2 players,
we didn't encounter it.
Didn't encounter it. It's tough to see it being that push and pull being there.
I will say, just as you look at the cards and as you we've been told, individuals that have read the book really, really love this, and it's something that I would like to read because I do think the artwork is really engaging. And I mentioned earlier the different types of cards reflecting different types of people in whatever society Red Rising focuses on, I think is really interesting. And so seeing those factions and seeing the types of individuals and professions that they have is something that makes me want to read the book, but also it's very engaging as you play. You've got lots of fun named cards. They just have these different personalities, and each color scheme has a completely different personality as well too. So each time we see new cards, it's like, oh, we've never seen this one. That one's great. Let's look at it. I think that's really cool. And I think the quality of the components for just a base game is very solid, right? It's plastic, but it's not flimsy. They're sturdy pieces.
And of course, I talked about it before, and now I still can't remember the name of the other Stonemaier game. But it's a similar plastic cubes that Stonemaier has. The cards, even retail has a nice linen finish on them. All unique artwork. That is
gorgeous.
Very nice. The nice tray for the helium. The player board is solid. Does it feel like the cheap cardboard?
Nothing feels really cheap. It's really, really good quality.
And I did get to play. I played this before. It was quite a bit ago when it first came out. Max had gotten the deluxe version, and knowing me and knowing how much I love
this
upgrades,
is no surprise.
I really loved it. There's no added pieces. It's just all of these plastic are upgraded to this really nice metal.
It's gorgeous.
The weight, the feel is great. I love it. The Sovereign is a metal piece. It's, I would put out a bit more money just for those metal pieces if you like that upgraded portion. But the retail is very good quality.
Yeah, and I mean overall, I think it's maybe not our favorite at 2 players, but at 4 players, it really is an enjoyable game. I think it kept everyone engaged. There was never a point that it felt like you were just racing to end it.
No.
I thought it was really fun. I think it's very interesting that the game at the higher player count can shift so dramatically round to round, and you're looking at your cards thinking you have nothing, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can make this work. That I think is really, really cool. I very much enjoyed it.
At 2 players, it feels more like a filler game, but is too long for a filler game. I think I'd go with something a little quicker, a little more pared down. Something. If you're looking for this style of game, I'd do a game that doesn't just pares it down and makes it just about the cards. That's fine. But 4 or 5 player count is where it's going to shine. Yes. You're really going to see all those mechanics come in and how they work together and give you those really difficult but rewarding choices. My highly recommend at a higher player count.
Same here. As always, thank you so much for joining us. And if you enjoyed, give us a like and a follow. Check out that Instagram account. Maybe Potato will make another appearance in the next video. And check out Red Rising. It's a great game.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
And thanks, Stonemaier, for our copy.
Yes, thank you. And make sure to check out the Etsy and Patreon page. We've had a lot of support there, and it's been great. I like that people are kind of liking these fun designs that I'm doing, and so thanks, everyone.
Thanks, friends.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.